Nearly 2 years ago, we started planning something massive, an overland journey around the globe. When the opportunity came up to buy the exact vehicle we dreamed of building for the trip, we jumped on it. What came home with us would become our ultimate globe-trotting overland rig. For the past year and a half, our friend and expert truck builder has been quietly bringing that dream to life behind the scenes. In this video, you finally get to meet Jerry, the ultimate overland vehicle. And trust us, this truck is going to take us on one wild ride. So buckle up and let's build.
Hey there folks. So I want to invite you in to a very special day. And the reason being is because we are making a big jump towards something that is coming a long ways from now. Before I continue, I just want to mention that it is September 28th, 2024. And the reason I say that is because this video will not be released to the public other than our Patreons for another year and a half, 2 years, until after we get back from the Pan American Highway. And that's important because we have already decided on what we are doing after the Pan American Highway. And the big jump that we're making today is we are currently on our way to go get a new engine. And that is because we have already purchased the vehicle that we will be building to go to Africa. So we will be doing Africa and the stands, and if things transpire, possibly Australia. We wanted to make sure that at the end of the Pan American Highway that we have as little build time between vehicles and trips as possible. So we've already purchased the truck, we've purchased the new front axle, and we're purchasing the engine today. And then while we are on the Pan American Highway, my friend Lance from 4x Farm is going to be doing the engine swap and the axle swap on the truck. And by the time we get back, we should have a running, driving truck to start making look very pretty, and we will build a custom camper on the back of it. Yeah, so that's just the short version, but we're going to pick up an engine and we're going to bring you along on that little adventure. So here we go.
So the whole garage has made its way along with the bed into the front. Well, into our living quarters.
Doing something crazy again.
So that our garage is fully free and clear for
that.
A freaking engine.
This is a Gen 3 4.8 liter V8 Chevrolet LS that we're purchasing to put into the 1990 GMT400 we purchased before we left to drive north. Necessity is the root of a lot of harebrained ideas, and while returning from the north of Canada, we wanted to be as cost efficient as possible, so we decided to disassemble our house a little and stuff this roughly 600-pound engine into the back of it. From here, we'll deliver it to Lance, our friend on the island, who'd be swapping it into our truck.
Alright.
So how's that for harebrained ideas? We have a van packed full of our home and another engine. So big thanks goes out to Daryl and Shay for getting us the engine, and we're gonna get a rear axle from them as well. Woo! Here goes the Jerry Africa build. We're naming the truck Jerry. So anyway, that's exciting. Look at that back end.
All you can see is bedding.
All you can see is bedding. And we are heading straight to my friend Lance's place from 4x Farm on YouTube. And we're gonna drop off the engine for Jerry. So we're unloading the engine, and then we'll get to see the axles that I bought. And over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to move Jerry from the current storage area that he is to Lance's place, and then collect a few more odds and ends. so that when we leave Quadra, Lance has everything that he needs to start doing the various swaps. So let's go.
While we were up north, we decided on the 4.8 liter LS because 1, we had a lot of experience with the engine as it is the same as we had in Betty, and 2, it seemed like an easy and relatively straightforward swap to change out a 5.7 liter 350 for a 4.8. Plus, Lance has plenty of experience with LS swaps. This was going to go off without a hitch. We could feel it in our bones.
Okay, today is an exciting day, another exciting day, because today is the first time that you guys, aside from the photos that I've posted on Patreon, are gonna get to see Jerry, our new truck, the truck that's going to Africa. So it is October 10th, 2024 today, and we are moving the truck from its storage place up to Lance's place so that Lance can get to work on doing all the modifications to Jerry. So it's going to be interesting because as of right now, the slave cylinder and the clutch might be faulty or worn out. So I basically just have to rev match the entire way from South Island all the way up to North Island, which is going to be interesting. So let's do this adventure now. Ford F-150.
There's our guy.
There he is.
There's our guy. Oh boy.
Ain't he a beauty?
Oh my gosh.
Probably gonna have to jump start him to get him going. I don't know about this battery.
Look at this fine specimen.
Look at this boy.
Oh my gosh.
So for all of you gearheads out there, the reason we bought this truck is because it is a 1990, so it has the dash that I like, and it's a 5-speed manual, which means that it has a NV4500 transmission in here, and that is the same transmission that they put behind Cummins 12 valves. So very, very strong transmission, very basic, and we just want strong and basic for when we go out into the middle of nowhere, because we don't want to be messing around with anything like super intricate or weak. Look at that beautiful thing. Big old Chevy 350.
Look at that engine bay.
Oh yeah, there's so much space.
I could fit in there.
I'm kind of like, it's almost like a new house. I'm like, I'm gonna put my air compressor here, and I'm gonna put my dual battery setup right here. So exciting. Don't mind me being weird.
What was not going to go off without a hitch was getting Jerry started. I don't have a ton of experience with carbureted engines, and I'm not a particularly good diagnostician, so this might take a while.
It doesn't seem like you know what you're doing.
No, it's a carbureted engine. And it's been sitting for a while.
Lance, we're gonna need you to come down here and do the engine swap here. What's this do?
Come on, Jerry.
I employed what little I knew about getting older engines started, but didn't have much luck. Gas in the carbs, more fuel in the tank to get the level over the pickup, checked and cleaned points, etc. Just nothing.
Butt shot.
Maybe I'll start with those lights on.
Okay, so it's now 5 o'clock. I think we've been at it for 5 hours roughly, or 4 hours. And we are going home with our tail between our legs. Couldn't get the truck started. And I am not very familiar with carbureted engines. I called the guy that I bought the truck from, and he figures it's probably something simple. We pulled the distributor cap and saw that the points were kind of corroded. I kind of like cleaned them up a little bit with emery cloth, but maybe I could have done a better job. So I'm gonna go back first thing tomorrow morning and do my best to clean up those points and see if we can get some kind of spark, because we were pouring fuel down the carb and like it was doing nothing. So it's got to be something. So that's the next plan, and if not, then we're just gonna get it towed. Dang. Well, here we are again. So I've just come to the truck this morning by myself. I've got an hour and a half to try and get it started before the tow truck arrives. I've got a few other tips that might help get it started, and I'm going to try those out, and fingers crossed it starts.
The suggestions that I got didn't really work, and I eventually narrowed it down to the distributor being bad, which I hear is a common issue with the old small block 350s. My hour or so came to an end, the tow truck arrived, and Jerry was carted up island to Lance's place.
Alright guys, it is the last leg of this journey before Meg and I take off for South America. I'm in the truck with my brother. That's my brother Andrew.
Hello.
Andrew. And we're delivering the 14-bolt rear axle that he brought with him to the island from Langley, and we're delivering it to Lance's place. And that is the last big piece of this puzzle. And when we come back, hopefully we have a running, driving truck that is all mechanically sound and stuff. So yeah, we're gonna drop off the axle, and then it'll be 2 years before I continue this video. Yeah. Okay, swing it out. Alright, so Lance has already gotten after pulling the old motor, so we got an open engine bay. That's pretty radical. And then this is our new 14-bolt rear end. It's got 410s and a G80 locker in it, so I don't have to re-gear the back end, and we've already got a reasonably decent locker. Got our solid front axle over there, and new engine is in the shop, so Jerry is he's ready to be transformed. All right, there you go. Everything's dropped off. Lance is gonna get after building the truck, and we'll see you in 2 years later. Well, I'm not entirely sure if I've recorded anything about this yet, so I'm just gonna do it now because I'm not sure. But I'm pretty sure that I failed to mention that we sold Thomas while we've been back here. Now Thomas is my Toyota pickup. It's a 1988. It's got a 3.4 liter V6 in it, solid front axle, and a camper on the back. And I built Thomas long ago as a vehicle that I was going to live in for a long period of time and do what we are doing now, which is traveling around and making YouTube videos. But then I met Meg, and we realized very quickly after a 2.5 week long trip that Thomas was just too small. He was parked shortly after us setting out in Betty for the first time, and has pretty much been parked ever since. And it was last year sometime that we decided that we were going to sell Thomas and build something new, which is now Jerry. And yeah, so he sold. He will be sold as I hand him off tomorrow to the new owner. And it just comes as a massive relief to me because I don't have to worry about financing the Jerry build from what I'm making off of YouTube while we're away. Everything that I make from this truck will go into the next truck, and should pretty much get Jerry completely running and driving, and takes a big responsibility, a big weight off my chest. So yeah, it's an end of an era. Another one of my builds goes on to another lucky owner. So we'll just get some last looks at Thomas here. He's a 1988 Toyota pickup, regular cab, long box, DLX model. I had my friend Dwayne swap a 3.4 liter V6 into the engine bay. We put a 1982 solid front axle under the front. It's a trail gear IFS eliminator kit, and then I Frenched in the front leaf springs so that the front of the truck sits lower. And I took a 2-wheel drive long box, did all the rust repair on there, built a custom rear bumper and custom front bumper plus sliders. I have Ford 57-inch leaf springs on the bottom. Got airbags in the back to support the weight of the camper. This right here is a gem top camper that I bought from a guy in the United States. You can't find these things anymore. They're pretty rare. And then I built a camper in the back, and you can see in there that there are some tires, and those are the tires that were once on Betty, but now they're going to the new owner. And yeah, I'm gonna miss this truck. I really didn't get to drive him enough, unfortunately, but I think that Jerry will be just as fun, if not more fun.
With that, Jerry was left in Lance's capable hands. We left the country on our way to Central America, and from there communicated with Lance from afar, discussing the myriad of choices that are to be made on a project like this. Lance began cutting away the old suspension and lining up the solid axle while also starting to wire up the LS. As projects often do, the size and breadth of this project began to balloon a bit. What started out as a truck that was supposed to be somewhat budget-friendly quickly started to become less so, as I tended to choose the best quality and most reliable option at every turn. We were already down in Mexico and having to make repairs in the van, and I was beginning to realize that if we wanted to travel the world, this truck would need to be able to be repaired anywhere without any specialized tool. Nothing in this truck could be half-assed, overlooked, or not well thought out, so the project grew and grew and grew. Then we started to have trouble with the van at high elevations, and we watched as our fuel mileage plummeted to around 9 miles per gallon with the steep grades in the mountains of Oaxaca. We were quickly beginning to realize that perhaps our choice of an LS engine wasn't the best for our overlanding needs. Although reliable and powerful, it wasn't quite as simple and fuel efficient and capable at elevation as we'd like it to be. When I started asking Lance about turbos for the LS, he said to me plain and simple, "If you're going to go that route, you might as well go with a diesel." And that's when the project really started to spiral out of control.
Okay, the motor's cold. Now slowly roll over.
It so happened that at the time we made the decision to change direction and go with a diesel engine, there was a Cummins 4BT for sale just an hour and a half away. My friend Wesley agreed to pick it up for us, and suddenly we had a diesel engine to put into Jerry. I had always loved the 6BT and 4BT engines. Having had a 6BT in a previous vehicle and knowing how heavy they are, the 4BT was the best option for the direction we were taking for the truck. If I'm being honest, making the decision to go to diesel came as a massive relief. Although this change in direction would prove to be significantly more expensive, it just felt right. I had always wanted to build a diesel pickup. In fact, I had chatted at length about building a Cummins-powered GMT400 with my friend Ray while building Thomas, my Toyota pickup that I had just sold. The simplicity of a mechanically injected inline 4-cylinder easel, the reduced weight of the 4BT, and the knowledge that we'd have all the torque and fuel mileage to haul a heavy camper around the world was exactly what we wanted. We were no longer compromising by having a gasoline vehicle. Over the remaining months as we traveled through South America, Lance continued to work away on Jerry, and as our return date grew closer and closer, a truly capable, reliable, and insanely tough pickup truck was built. By the time we were returning to Canada, I was bursting with excitement and itching to tell the world about what we had built and where we were taking it. As you'll see, no expense was spared, no detail overlooked.
Well, today is the day. I have been waiting for this for 2 years, and I'm so excited. We're gonna go see our new truck for the very first time, and driving to the north end of the island to my friend's place, who has been building the truck for us for the last 2 years. We're gonna get a startup. We're gonna get a whole run through of everything that's been done, and yeah, I'm so freaking stoked.
Well, Lance?
So I was really hoping you'd get to take it for a test drive on your first visit, and yeah, we made it.
We made it.
It's not quite done, but you get to drive it.
There it is.
Jerry.
Holy smokes, dude, it looks so good.
And all I really have to say is if you're trying to build a tractor, we nailed that.
Yeah? Sick. Oh my gosh. Dude, it sits beautifully. Holy shit, I cannot believe I dropped off just like an old beat up piece of crap pickup with you.
I had to rinse it because it was actually pretty green.
Oh yeah? Holy shit, dude, it sits so nice. All right, here's the big reveal. Oh yeah. Jeez, man.
Sweet.
Kind of killing me to be looking at this for the first time behind a lens. Alrighty, well, this is Jerry, our 1990 Chevy K2500 that we left to Lance here about 2 years ago, and since then he has turned this into an absolute monster. And today is the day that we're going to go into the details of all that he has done to the truck over the past, I guess it's like a year and a half or something like that. And let me tell you, there has been a lot of stuff that he has done, and there's no better guy to tell you all about it than Lance, because this guy has a giant brain with tons and tons of information in it. And he gave me all of the best suggestions and stuff like that for how we should make this thing, or what we should do to make this thing into the best possible globe-trotting vehicle. So take it away, Lance. I'm gonna pop the hood first.
Yeah, you bet.
All right.
I mean, first off, I should probably thank you for trusting me with this process.
Put it there, boss.
Because I know this is not exactly cheap stuff, and obviously this is going to be your baby for a long time. So
This is going to be our forever truck.
again, yeah, thanks a lot for letting me be a part of it. I'm really excited to watch it on on YouTube on our Saturdays and see what you guys have planned for it.
Oh
so,
man, the day that we get to take this thing out for the first time on our first trip is going to be amazing.
Yeah, you bet. So one of the themes with this build was we wanted to use as many off-the-shelf components that kind of already exist in most parts stores, because I know you guys are going to be going not only around potentially North America, but other parts of the world. So that's why ultimately we ended up going to the 4BT. You can get Cummins parts across the world. We used a Duramax intercooler and radiator, as well as the expansion tank for the coolant system, and our upgraded brake booster and master cylinder. Some of the components on the front of the 4BT match with a Dodge, as well as the clutch and bell housing components for the transmission. Our front axle, we've got out of a 2005 or newer Super Duty, which is kind of the go-to these days in the performance world. Good steering, good aftermarkets availability and parts for that. You can also get the free spin kits and stuff like I think you've been leaning towards to upgrade to. Yeah, just a really robust front end for what you guys are going to be up to. In the rear, we've got the GM 14 bolt rear end, which is just a personal favorite really. A little bit of difficulties with its width being a little different and the bolt pattern doesn't quite match, but we had a solution for that. It's just got an NV4500 5-speed and a good old cast iron NP205 transfer case. So there's really not a lot to go wrong on this motor. There's no electronics required, so if the world gets hit with an EMP, you'll be the guy starting your truck up on a little push start and good to go. So there's nothing slowing this one down. We had a long, hard discussion when we first started choosing the diesel motor about whether we should do the 6-cylinder or the 4-cylinder. And to be honest, I actually told Alex to go with the 6-cylinder. But in the end, I'm sure glad he picked the 4 because as you can see, there's not a whole lot of room here. When we started adding the power steering reservoir from PSC, the turbo and the steed speed manifold, it kind of put that not in exactly the ideal situation with our air compressor, which was a, what's the word? That was non-negotiable, I think is the term Alex used on the discussion.
We need air conditioning.
Yeah, you bet. The 4-cylinder worked out really good. It kind of lets them work on it easier when they're out in remote places as well. Getting at the whole front timing cover is going to be really easy for any sort of servicing. Some of the upgrades we did with this, I've already mentioned. We got the steed speed manifold. They're the best in the business. There was no arguing that. This is a HX30 Super or a Super HX30. I'm not, I think that's how they describe that one. It's just a slightly bigger version than the HX30. It's kind of the best option for a quick spool up to about 300 horsepower. I believe this model of engine was factory tuned for about 150 horsepower, which doesn't sound like a lot, but back in the 90s, that's all a 12 valve ever came with. So that's actually quite a bit for a little motor.
We're definitely going to be doing some performance upgrades that will get us a little bit higher on the horsepower front and torque front, and then also reliability. Right?
Yeah, we're gonna at least do some governor springs, valve springs, and some pump tuning, potentially delivery valves and injectors. It should be easily tunable up to about 250 horsepower with some simple modifications. That's why we chose the P-pump on that side there. This is a pretty rare motor in North America to find the P-pump. They're getting even harder to find. They're a very desirable engine just for the reliability and the potential power output of them. So in the front we've got the Super Duty front axle, and we did a PSC hydraulic assist kit with their big bore steering box, and I believe we used an 1.25 inch steering ram. I think their other option is an 1.5 inch. We went with the smaller one just based on what they're doing and their tire size. I prefer the smaller rams if you're doing more daily driving and maneuvering in tight spaces, so you don't lose your ability to steer fast or speedy. We've got a custom drag link here with a Ford factory drag link end at that end and a Chevy 1-ton drag link end at this end. I managed to sniper a panhard bar in there, which was extremely difficult, being that we tried to push the axle as far forward as possible, which is just standard procedure in building trucks for the way I do it. If you want to fit big tires, you got to put the axle as far forward as possible. There's just not really a way around that, or you're going to be cutting into your foot area at the passenger department there, right? So yeah, we haven't really done anything internally on the front end yet. The goal was to just get Alex a driving truck. So other than that, we've just got some Bilstein. I think we went with the 5100s,
yep,
and some factory coils. So This is as low as we can possibly make it. There's only about 2 or 3 inches of up travel, but I believe we have plans to change that in the future. So getting underneath the truck here, carrying on with the front axle, Alex opted to go with some custom radius arms, which we fabricated with some TMR parts and also the link ends from my friend at Northern Peak Off-Road. And we went with some of the biggest joints that are commonly available. In fact, we got the TMR lifetime Heims at this end, and we went with a cheaper one at the radius arm connection here, just because it doesn't see a whole lot of wear or use. They're matching size, so in the event that this one fails, he can interchange them, even though I'm sure he's going to have a rebuild kit and another spare on board at most times. But again, redundancy was a huge part of this process. We went with a Chevy NV4500 in this project, not exactly because we chose to, but kind of because of the course correction we went through at the beginning of this process, which maybe we'll get into a little bit later. But the Chevy transmission is great. We ended up changing the input shaft out to a Dodge, which allowed us to bolt the Dodge bell housing to it and all the clutch components to the 4-cylinder Cummins. We mated a NP205 Ford case directly to the NV4500, which is pretty uncommon. We actually had to get a, it's not custom, it's off the shelf from Northwest Fab, but they make their own custom shaft that they produce for doing exactly this, which keeps a very short drivetrain length, which allows for a pretty compact setup in the front for the drive shaft. It keeps the shifters for the transfer case in a nice spot for us to build some mechanical shifters, which unfortunately I haven't got to yet, but we'll get there. And we also got the Northwest Fab billet kit on there, which I'm sure Alex is going to cut to pretty quick because that is some beautiful jewelry underneath the truck. Following the 205, we went with a 1480 drive shaft at both ends to the 14 bolt rear end. So we've got the GM 14 bolt rear here. We've got the Govlock G80 internally with a 410 gear ratio. I believe we're going to be changing out the Govlock a little bit later after we get some miles on the unit. And you can see we've also used the MBRP 4-inch exhaust all the way to the downpipe, which was actually another item we made work off of the shelf from MBRP. This is for a 2005 Duramax, which also matches the radiator, the intercooler, our brake booster, our master cylinder. So the shopping list for parts on this in the future won't be that hard to keep track of because we kept it kind of specific with certain vehicles. We've got power stop brakes on here, which I will say from first-hand experience, they're an excellent product. The heat-treated rotors last way longer than any other brand that I've ever worked with, and they stop great. I actually haven't had to change a set of pads on anyone that has power stop brakes yet. And I've worked with quite a few of those kits in the past. Yeah, otherwise, just your good old 14 bolt. They're one of the best rear ends to work on, in my opinion. You've got the pinion dropout from the front. You've got the adjustable set screws to do your carrier preload. You got the third bearing for the pinion support, and not to mention just a ton of aftermarket support. There's lockers available, diff covers available. And fortunately we went with this later model unit, which gave us the factory disc brakes, so we're working on utilizing all the factory e-brake stuff as well, which those of you guys that have done any sort of conversions know the trials and tribulations of making the e-brakes work and all those fun things and getting things legally ready for the road, right? So So early on in the project, we kind of had a different motor picked out for it. So we had a different dash than you would usually find behind an old mechanical motor. That being said, a mechanical motor still needs electronics if you want to monitor things. So we went with a Dakota Digital fully electronic dash, and they've got their own module down here that makes it really easy to hook up their own water temperature sensor and oil pressure sensor. And now we're just working on getting the speedometer and the tachometer all calibrated to his gear ratio and tire size and the pulse signal off this motor, which has been surprisingly trickier than I expected because diesels don't have spark or whatever. So we have the factory Dodge 3-wire sensor, and we had to get another module, which I think I got tied up under there for now, to convert that signal to work with this dash. Yeah, we've got a couple more gauges that we're going to put up here, pyrometer, boost. I think we were going to do a fuel pressure as well. I had to do some brake pedal modifications to work with the 2005 master cylinder. Yeah, it's other than that, this is just a good old-fashioned Chevy on the inside, I think. Yeah. So this is one of the more robust electrical systems I've done. We went with one of the best, an Odyssey battery, and some big battery cable to this Mechman 370 amp alternator, which on the tag it said it does 400 amps, which is, yeah, which I think was at like 1800 or 2000 RPM, which is just insane to me. Apparently they're the best in the business, and this thing is going to need to make some electricity for what these guys are up to, so that just seemed to be the best choice. I figured I'd match the same size cable to the starter just to make sure you don't have a problem there, but that was probably a little extra on my part.
We like extra.
Yeah.
Extra's good. All right, well that is pretty much everything that Lance has done over the last nearly 2 years. And we're going to finish up a few other little things, which Lance has already talked about. And then from there, I'm going to be taking the truck over and making it aesthetically pleasing, and then super functional. And then we're going to build a camper on the back of this thing. So that's going to be really, really exciting. I can't wait to get a bumper on this thing and some sliders, which is probably going to be the first thing I do. And then I'm going to redo the whole interior, and then after that it'll be a flatbed build, and then over the winter we're going to build our own custom pop-up camper that eventually will take us around the world and house us and all that stuff. So freaking A, man. I'm looking forward to it, man. It's been a long time in my shop. I can't wait to see it on the TV instead. Heck yeah. Well, let's get a few more driving shots, I think, and show these people what this thing sounds like. Yeah, you bet. All right.
Oh, it's dirty in here. Ah, it's so hot. Oh, hi, home.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is so awesome! All right, folks. Well, that's that for just the run over of Jerry. Over the next few weeks, we're just going to dive into some new stuff. There's going to be a few sponsor videos coming out, and yeah, and then we're just going to start with bumper build and interior, and all that good stuff. So stay tuned. It's going to get really good, and I am stoked to show you some build content and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah! All right. Thanks for being here. Catch you in the next one. Later.